Good afternoon. Transmitting from now sunny Dallas, Georgia. My name is Paul Rosen. I will be the presenter for our Kaplan webinar number 9 of our 10-pack on commercial inland marine insurance, crime insurance, commercial auto, and our miscellaneous policies. My associate, my partner in crime, Darlene London, will be my moderator. Everyone's audio, their microphones are muted so that we don't have to hear babies crying, teenagers screaming, phones going off, alarms going off. Early in the day, thank goodness they came before I started my early morning webinar when they are blowing the leaves and the grass and everything, you know, those lawn things that they use, the landscapers, fire engines. So we have an action-packed webinar today. I'm basically combining 4 of our regular pre-licensing units. It's what I call in New York, we're squeezing 5 pounds of bologna in a 1-pound bag here. Sort of like when Lindt Chocolate, I remember my wife and I were at a strip mall, Lindt Chocolate was having a special where if you filled this bag up with as many chocolates as you want, you got the whole bag for 10 bucks. Right, Lindt Chocolates are really good, those soft middles there. So that's what we're doing today. So there's going to be a lot of slides that I'm going to be passing through pretty quickly. So what that should give you as a heads up is don't worry too much about it. And then there may be some slides where the slide is not progressing or moving. There's nothing wrong with your computer. There's nothing wrong with my computer. It's just there are additional points that I want to make sure you know for your test. So we'll be starting up our webinar in about 9 minutes. And then tomorrow will be our final of our 10-pack series for property casualty insurance. And tomorrow's webinar will be on the BOP, the business owner policy, and workers' compensation insurance. The state law supplements are not going to be covered on the webinar. So you want to consult that. You also want to make sure that your administrator for your state exam who puts out their outline, you want to either print it out if you have a printer, or you want to download it as an Adobe PDF file, and make sure you know what the breakdown is of your questions. So if you have a topic for which it's only 1% of your test, don't spend 35 hours studying 1%, 1 or 2 questions. What you want to study and put a lot of energy in are the units, such as for dwelling, homeowners, personal auto, which many times could be 20, 30% of any given state exam out there. You want to make sure you put your energies into that. Okay, so I'm here as a cheerleader, a presenter, a coach, sometimes a psychiatrist too. So it's all mindset with this stuff. So you got to put yourself in a good mindset, a good frame of mind. And if you do that, hi Olivia, good afternoon, or good morning. Well, yeah, it's good afternoon if you're on the West Coast now. Unless anyone's from Hawaii, then you're still in the morning. So, you know, it's very important. Mindset is so important. And so many things that we do in life is mental. So, for example, when you're on that state exam, some of the state exams are 100 questions, some of them could be 150 questions. So you want to treat question 3 the same as question 93. So when you first start that test, you're all excited and really raring to go. And then as you're going through those questions, now you get to question 93 and you feel like you're so beat up mentally and also physically. You start getting a little fatigued after a while answering all these questions. So you got to treat question 93 as if you were answering question 3. Makes sense, right? So we're going to be putting together a lot of stuff. We're working on a lot of things behind the scenes right now. So do keep an eye on your email box. Do keep an eye on our Kaplan website. All right, lots of really good stuff coming up, lots of good announcements. And I noticed on my LinkedIn page, I had over 110 views. So I don't know if any of you are spying on me here, but I usually get maybe 3 or 4 views, because who knows how many hundreds of thousands of people on LinkedIn. All of a sudden I had 110 this week. So I guess someone is watching me. Someone is watching me. So we'll be starting in about 5 minutes. Someone's asking about a temporary license. What a temporary license is if the licensee were to die or become disabled, or the licensee were to be called for active military duty, the executor of the estate, someone has a power of attorney, a spouse, a business partner who isn't already licensed can apply for a temporary license. But what you got to look for, Buckley, is the time period for that temporary license can vary from state to state. So some states may only give you 6 months. Some may give you a year. Some may give you 18 months for the temporary license. But here's the takeaway. With the temporary license, they cannot do what a full licensee could do. In other words, they cannot transact insurance business. So they cannot solicit, they cannot negotiate, nor can they write new insurance business. So the purpose of the temporary license is to allow that person who, let's say my wife took over for my book of business, it allows that person to service the accounts and also to be paid the commissions for it. Because of COVID-19, good question. All right, good question. I would say to answer that, check on your state insurance department's website and do a search on their website. If you don't see anything, I would say your best bet would be sending an email, because they too are working from home. Many of them, they're not in their offices, or if there are people in the office, you're dealing with very skeleton type staffs there. So you probably will get a faster answer that way. But, you know, our state here, down here in Georgia, Governor Kemp started opening things up last Friday. We fortunately only had about 2 or 3 counties that were hotspots: Atlanta, Gwinnett, and there was another county in the southwest. I think it was called Doherty County. So those were our 3 counties. But my county where I am, Paulding, thank the Lord, I think we only had about 230 something people, and I think we only had maybe 2 or 3 deaths of the 230 some odd people that were positive for the COVID-19. So hopefully as the weather warms up, there'll be fewer and fewer new diagnosed with COVID-19 virus. But what they are showing when they're testing people for the antibodies, they are showing 40, 30, 50% of people actually have the antibodies, which means they were exposed to the virus. But because their immune system is strong, their body was able to build up immunity and fight it off. So that's my answer to your question, Buckley. I hope I helped you on that. So we got less than 2 minutes to go. We got an action-packed hour. So I'm gonna be cramming in a lot of stuff here. All right, once again, these webinars are not in place of any pre-licensing requirement. These webinars are serving as review for you, because we understand many of you were registered or took classes back in December, January, February. You were ready to sit for your state exam in March, or maybe we're going to set up an appointment in April. Only if you already were scheduling an appointment in March or beginning of April, your appointment was canceled, and then you couldn't get on, and they said that they closed till further notice. I know in Georgia here, they're starting to open up. I think tomorrow they're going to start taking appointments for exams. Obviously, they'll practice the social distancing, and little by little, states will start opening up. I'm praying to God that by next month, this time, by May 30th, that things will be, I'm not going to say back to normal, but will at least be functioning again. I'll tell you what's killing me right now, having no baseball. Okay, 4 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, 30th of April, 2020. Good afternoon, everyone. Transmitting from beautiful Northwest Georgia in a city called Dallas. Yeah, we have Dallas, Georgia, not just Dallas, Texas. So remember, there is a Dallas, Georgia. My name is Paul Rosen. I will be your presenter. My partner in crime, my associate, Darlene London, will be my moderator. Your microphones, your audio are silenced. So if you have a question, Darlene will be more than happy to answer your question to the best of her ability. Today's webinar, brought to you by Kaplan, is a freebie to our students, all right, in appreciation that, you know, it's not your fault that you can't take your state exam. So we're very appreciative that you're hanging in there with us. And hopefully you'll spread the word that, you know, we don't just look to take money from people and go through the motions. We're looking to help people pass tests, and that's our goal. And that's been my goal for now. This is my 21st year with Kaplan, 29 years teaching, 36 years in the insurance business. So that's our goal. All right. Our goal is for you to sit for the state exam and sit for it once. Apply for your license once you've fulfilled all your pre-licensing requirements. Apply for your license and then go out there and help people make a living. That's our goal. Now, we're not going to get state specific on this webinar, as we haven't done any of the prior 8, because we have people calling in from all over the country. In fact, if I last count, I think I saw 414 people were registered. So come on in, the door's open, the water's fine, jump on in with us. Welcome to the webinar. So today's webinar, we're going to be looking at commercial and marine insurance, crime insurance, commercial auto, and miscellaneous commercial insurance. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road here. So on our inland marine insurance, we have many categories, right? Our nationwide definition, we have imports, exports, personal property floaters. On the commercial side, we have domestic shipments, the instrumentalities of transportation and communication, and our commercial property floater risks. When you read the word floater, all right, and they'll test you on that word floater. What floater means is we're talking about personal property, either business personal property or your own individual personal property, that can easily be moved from point A to point B. And because this personal property or commercial property is valuable, obviously things could go wrong while it's being transported, while it's being moved. So we want to make sure that it is covered, just in case something were to happen. Our conditions, once again, your conditions section is going to be similar on all your policies. Our 2 parties to the insurance contract, party number 1, the insured, party number 2, the insurer. So what do we need to do in the conditions when a loss has occurred? Number 1, promptly contact your insurance company. Number 2, if a crime has been committed, file a police report. Number 3, protect the property from further damage. Number 4, separate damage from undamaged property. Number 5, cooperate with the insurance company. Number 6, give a sworn statement or a signed affidavit that the loss that you're filing claim for is legitimate true loss, right? We've seen them, we've heard that many times. Now, on many different risks, there can be more than one policy that could cover the same claim. So the bottom line is, when there is other insurance, we can't duplicate payments because the purpose of insurance, once again, you want to definitely positively know for your state exams the definition of the word indemnity. And the word indemnity means that we're looking to make someone financially whole. So we're not looking to put them in a better condition financially after they had a loss, but nor are we looking to put them in a worse condition after having a loss. Now, on our commercial articles coverage forms, once again, we're talking about property, personal property, talking about business personal property that has value. Right? Some cameras could be $100,000. Some video equipment could be more than your house. So we want to make sure we insure it. Musical equipment, musical instruments. You get an original John Lennon guitar, you sell that to a collector, you don't have to work another day in your life. I'm sure it's worth millions of dollars, especially if he wrote one of his songs. So we want to insure musical equipment, photography equipment. Now, if someone already has a commercial articles form built into your policy automatically, it reads that when they acquire new equipment that is similar to what they're already insuring, it'll automatically be covered for 30 days before it is officially added on to the policy. But the limit of coverage is going to be limited to the lesser of $10,000 or 25% of the value of the equipment they're already insuring. So we're insuring for $6,000, 25% of $6,000 would be $1,500. They're not going to insure you for $10,000. We could also get an accounts receivable coverage form. This covers damage to your accounts receivable. I laugh when I always read this, requires receptacles. What are the receptacles? We're talking about file cabinets. I can tell you probably 10 years from now, a file cabinet is going to be extinct like a dinosaur, because more and more record keeping is kept electronically, and copies of that record keeping is kept up in the clouds. So if there's a fire in the building, doesn't matter if it was destroyed there, we probably have 20 copies up in the cloud somewhere that could easily be accessed through the internet. Same thing with the valuable papers and records coverage form. There you go. That's a picture of a file cabinet. Any of you that are too young to remember what they look like. We also could get a signed coverage form. Now, in most commercial property forms, it'll cover a sign that is attached to the building, but it's going to be very limited, the dollar amount of coverage. So by buying a signed coverage form, what that will do is it will cover attached as well as detached signs for greater than the limits that were originally on the policy. We could sell to a jeweler's block coverage form. So this covers the jeweler's jewelry, precious stones. It covers inventory that has been sold but has not been picked up yet or delivered to the customers. But the jeweler's block form, testing point, it's not going to cover jewelry worn by the insured or their employee. On the form, in order to be covered, they must take a physical inventory at least once a year. When the business is closed down for the day, all of that jewelry can't just be left out in the open. It must be in a protective safeguard, AKA safe. And what they could also do, if that jeweler, let's say, is in a mall, and in the mall, let's say there's a freestanding showcase, they could get coverage to cover jewelry that they keep in that showcase during the day. An equipment dealer's coverage form, this we would offer to a construction company that is actually a dealer, a sales dealer of equipment. So when you hear mobile equipment means vehicles that are used off of public roads. to cover the vehicles on the public roads. That means we get regular commercial auto or trucker form. Our property that's in transit for domestic shipments. We could get coverage for bill of lading. So this will tell us what is the trucker or the carrier's responsibilities from bringing something from point A to point B. A business like a trucking company will have an annual transit form for domestic shipments because they're shipping many times during the day, every single day of the year, literally. As compared to a business that is doing a 1 or 2 time incidental shipment for the year, then all that they would require to purchase for a single shipment would be what we call a trip transit, where it's just going to be a one-way ticket, not a round trip. Our motor truck cargo, this is our form of bailee coverage for a trucker. So this will cover the insured goods that's in the insured trucks. It'll also cover for bailee if we set up as a combination form. Now on the state exam, sometimes they ask what would be an example of an instrumentality of transportation. Oh, I hit my button too fast. What would be an example of an instrumentality of transportation or communication? Looks like the Golden Gate Bridge there, does it? So we're talking about bridges, tunnels, roadways, cell phone towers, waterways. You know, when you go into a store to buy something, right, most people don't think, wow, how did that dozen eggs get into that supermarket? You never think about it. All you do is go to the shelf, hopefully they have the eggs there. I know many places up in the Northeast, things are sparse right now in supermarkets, but when things go back to normal, how did that item get there? Many things had to occur for it to get there. Our commercial property floater risk. So here's now the coverage, because remember when I talked about on earlier webinars, if you were on, I talked about on auto insurance, on homeowners and dwelling, on commercial property forms, that there was no benefit to the bailee. So if our insured is a bailee, all right, so let's say we have as an insured now is a dry cleaner. If I'm the dry cleaner and my establishment has a fire, and not only is my business building destroyed, but my customer's property is destroyed, I can't now say to my customers, well, you probably have renters or homeowners insurance, don't you? So go file a claim on it. No, there is no benefit to me, the bailee, for my customer's property that was in my possession that was damaged or destroyed. So a reputable dry cleaner, to protect their customer's property. So bailee liability, once again, liability is third party. That's going to be covering the property of the third party that our insured temporarily has possession of. We have contractors' equipment floaters. So once again, you hear the word floater, point A to point B. You ever on the highway, you see a big flatbed truck and you see a big heavy duty construction vehicle on that flatbed, and it's crawling at like 2 miles an hour because it's very big and very heavy. So that's what we're talking about here, where they're moving that heavy duty bulldozer or whatever construction equipment that is being used from point A to point B, right? So when you hear the word floater, very simple here. The simpler you keep things, the more you're going to retain. A floater simply means you're moving the equipment here from point A to point B. We also have installation floaters. This covers property that's in transit or is awaiting an installation. That insurance coverage ends once the equipment has been installed. We also have electronic data processing. Very important coverage, because as I said, more and more of our information is being stored, transmitted, recorded electronically, And if we have, you know, a glitch in our system, either in the software or there's a thunderstorm and it hits your electrical wires to your building and it fries your hard drive, ooh, I better have some backups of that. Been there, done that many years ago, where you lose all your information on your hard drive. You're like in tears. Now, this will also cover on this electronic data processing. It'll cover for what is called extra expense. So let's say my hard drive or my software is compromised or damaged, and now I got to get a computer programmer in to try to set up parallel another system, another server, till they can get all my information on there. Well, that's going to be an extra expense. Maybe I had to get a whole brand new computer system. That's going to be an extra expense. So extra expense coverage means expenses that you wouldn't have had you not had the loss. And then also you may have loss of income, because if you can't bill people for goods or services that you provided, means if you're not billing them, you're not getting paid. So you also could have loss of income on there. On our crime insurance. Now, in the crime insurance here, it's really testing us on glossary terms. So as I've said on the prior 8 webinars, I'm going to say today and I'm going to say tomorrow, get a copy of your state exam outline. If you have a printer, print it out and mark it up. What you're going to see on that state exam outline is they're just going to have words. Now, what does it mean that they just have words on the outline? Very simple. They want to make sure you know your insurance terms, your insurance glossary. So on crime, we have different definitions. Our definition of a burglary. A burglary is property that is taken from within a premises, and we know it's a burglary because there's visible evidence of forced entry or forced exit into that building. There's a broken door, a broken lock, a broken window, a big gaping hole in the roof, a big gaping hole in the wall. They came in through the basement. Anywhere where there isn't a kind of security system or security, they're going to try to get in. And usually they're coming in during after hours, right? When buildings shut down for the day for business. We also are talking about safe burglary. So a business, let's say, has a safe. Inside the safe, they keep extra cash, right? Because people still pay with cash. Not everyone pays with credit cards. So if someone's paying with cash, and let's say the bank, they open at 7 o'clock, that store, the bank doesn't open at 8:30, 9 o'clock. They don't want to run out of change and lose a sale because they don't have the change to give to a customer. So maybe they're keeping extra cash in there. So let's say someone breaks in, they break into the premises, and now they break into the safe. Now, how do we know it's safe burglary? Well, several things could have occurred. We see that the door was broken down, a window was broken. We see that the safe was vandalized. We could see that it was jimmied open, or someone messed around with the lock, or they ran out with whatever was within the safe and the safe door has been left open. Or you have a really bold burglar who not only takes what's in the safe, but they also take the safe as well. So you go to open up the safe in the morning to get the coins and cash out, and you're like, wait a minute, where's the safe? So they took not only the safe, but they also took the contents. That's called safe burglary. A robbery is defined as when you now have a face-to-face confrontation with another individual who's holding in your face a gun. And basically they're saying that if you don't comply with their demands and hand over your property, that they're going to cause physical harm to you. So don't be a hero. Remember where I worked in retail many years ago? Don't be a hero. They want it, just give it to them. All right, don't be a hero. But of course, it's easy for me to say it when you're in a relaxed, calm situation. When you're put in that situation and your adrenaline is pumping and the person robbing you, their adrenaline's pumping, sometimes you don't always think rationally, but rather you are your animal instincts. How dare they try to take property from me? So try to stay calm as best as you can. Now, all these go under theft. So burglary, safe burglary, and robbery, all are under our definition of theft. Theft means the unlawful taking of another's property. A forgery is either altering a document or signing someone's name. Never sign a customer's name on an application. If they miss the signature, send them over the application they missed the signature on and sign. Electronic signatures today are acceptable as original signatures. And then we need to know the definition of mysterious disappearance. Insurance policies for crime coverage do not cover for what is called mysterious disappearance. The definition of mysterious disappearance is property that was there 1 minute, come back an hour or two later or the next day, the property's missing. Now, unless you're able to show visible evidence of forced entry where the property was vandalized, the door was busted down, a window was broken, there's a big hole in the roof. If it's because you were absent-minded and forgot where you left something, that would be an example of mysterious disappearance. They're not going to cover you for that. And then a custodian is someone who is watching over the premises as well as watching over the personal property in the premises. So that would be a night watchman. All right, so the business hires a night watchman that walks around the perimeter of the building, checking to make sure doors are locked. So they're looking to watch over the property, the real property, as well as the business personal property, called a custodian. A messenger is someone who has the custody of your property, who's away from your premises. So the custodian is in the premises, the messenger is outside the premises. And then a watch person is someone who is watching over the property. So those are our types of crimes. Now let's look at crime forms. We have what's called the loss sustained form. We have the discovery form. On our loss sustained form, it says that it'll cover losses that occurred during the policy period. However, the loss must be discovered during the policy period or within a year of the expiration of the policy. As compared to a discovery form says that the loss could occur at any time. So on the loss sustained, that's your distinction here now. The loss sustained says it has to occur during the policy period. The discovery form says it could occur at any time, just as long as it was discovered within the policy period when you were covered, or within 60 days of expiration. Employee theft is a very big issue today for businesses, which is why a lot of retailers offer very generous employee discounts, because they figure it's a lot less costly to give your employee 30 or 40 or 50% off the item than having employees pilfer and steal from under your nose. Now, on our employee theft, this covers the wrongdoing of the employee, but it's not going to give you coverage if the employee whose similar insurance was previously canceled, or they're trading in the insured's name or fictitious name, or they commit insurance fraud or dishonest acts of warehouse receipts. Forgery and alteration, we already talked about. We also could get inside the premises. This can and will cover theft of money and securities. But once again, it can't be a mysterious disappearance. We also have loss of property while it's inside, loss of property that's in a safe. It will also cover vandalism that is caused to the building. So if they broke down the door, they broke a window, that'll be covered. Outside the premises theft, duh, where did it occur? Outside the premises. So we're talking about theft, disappearance, destruction of money, securities. We're talking about a messenger who has the care and custody of your property that's bringing it to another location, or it could be an armored car. Here's the big one today: computer fraud. Computer fraud. You always want to shut down your work terminal. Many businesses, the work terminal, if the employee didn't shut it down, usually if there's not a keystroke within a 3 to 5 minute period, it'll automatically log out that computer. You also want to make sure that you are not keeping obvious passwords. Some of the stupidest things I see, I hope none of you do this, you take a yellow sticky Post-it note and you put it on your computer screen with your username and password for your computer. Ouch. Why even bother turning it down? Now, it'll also cover other property. And on computer fraud, sometimes you have an employee who is transmitting monies, inventory, to external sources from within the business. You also have the money orders and counterfeit money. You go into a store, retail store. Today, they have either that little pen that they mark on the bill, or today, even faster, they just feed it through a machine. The machine is able to detect right away whether it's a good bill or a counterfeit bill. Computer funds transfer fraud. You don't want to give all your employees your bank account information, your login for your bank accounts. Extortion. Extortion is where criminals, cyber criminals, they look to take over a big business's computer server, an insurance company, a bank, stockbroker firm. Think about all of the PII we're collecting on that individual. PII is a personal identifiable information. The person's name, the person's date of birth, the person's social security number, their home address, their business address, their phone numbers, their email addresses, their bank information, so their routing number, the bank name, and the account number. Do you need much more to clean out someone's bank account? So let's say someone hacks into the main server for a big business, and all of a sudden the business has no access to their computers and their information. And now they get a call or they get an email making demands. So it's not where the thieves today are taking people physically and holding them hostage and saying, you don't bring $20 million over to this parking lot at 6 o'clock tonight, this person is going to be floating in the bottom of the ocean somewhere. Instead, what they're doing is they're saying, you want to be able to get into your server and your computer again? We're demanding $20 million be wire transferred, usually to some foreign country's bank account. Guest property coverage. When I was doing a lot of traveling for Kaplan, and when I go on vacation, you always want to travel light. Don't leave valuable personal property on the front counter opposite the front door of your hotel room. Here's typically what housekeeping does. They usually put a door stop in the door so I don't have to keep using the key to go in and out. And they're in the back room, which is usually the bathroom, putting in fresh towels and linens and everything. I now walk by your hotel room. The door has been kept open by a doorstop. And I see a beautiful brand new iPhone 11 Plus on the counter there. It doesn't look like anyone's there because I'm hanging around a little while. I walk in there, now the housekeeping person comes out from the bathroom. They said, "Oh, so sorry, sir. I didn't realize that you were still in here. I'll be out of here shortly." And I say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am. I didn't realize you were cleaning my room. I left my phone on the counter." See what happened there? So don't keep things in your hotel room. In fact, don't even keep things in a safe, because someone at that hotel that, let's say, becomes crooked, or let's say they fired an employee for stealing and they have all of the combinations or a master key, it's not very difficult to go in and steal. A bond. Now, what's tested on bonds in our state exam? An insurance policy is a two-party contract. Party number one is the insured on the insurance policy. Party number two is the insurer. On a bond, right, and this is tested, a bond is a three-party contract. All right, let me repeat that again. A bond has three parties. Here are the three parties to the bond. We have what we call the obligor, O-B-L-I-G-O-R. The obligor is the principal on the bond, and I'll describe each of them in a moment. We have the insured, the obligee. That's party two. And then party number three on the bond is the surety. The surety is the insurance company who is backing the face amount of the bond. So let's say it's a $50,000 bond. We call that face amount on the bond, the dollar amount of the bond, that is what is referred to as the penalty. Now, do people make promises out there and renege on their promises? Every second of every day, someone is breaking a promise. Even a contract in writing, people are not honoring their contracts. So let's say you hire a general contractor to gut your bathroom. So the things you always want to ask that person, aside from the price, is, do you have the proper permits? Are you licensed in the county to do the work that I'm looking to hire you to do? Are you insured? Do you have workers' compensation for your employees? Are you bonded? And then the last thing I want to ask them, are all the employees that are going to be coming into my house to demolish the current bathroom and build a new bathroom, are all these your employees? Oh, yeah, no problem, sir. Okay, fine. So I'm going to want to see a bond. So when I sign an agreement, a contract with that general contractor, the general contractor is the principal on the bond that they're giving me. Here's what they're saying. They're making a promise that they're going to gut the bathroom, they're going to rip out all the walls, plumbing, electrical, and they're going to install all new stuff. And it's going to be installed to code. They're telling me that they're going to do it for a certain price. And I tell them, listen, I'm going to have a lot of family over because it's going to start opening up, and family hasn't seen each other for 8-10 weeks now. We want to get together. So I, as the homeowner, am the obligee. I'm the party to whom the obligor, the principal, the general contractor, made promise to, that they were going to gut the bathroom to the studs, put in all new fixtures and plumbing and electrical and the tile and everything else for an agreed upon price, and have the work completed. Let's see, Memorial Day this year is May 25th. By May 21st, the work will be done. And I say, well, that's all fine and good. What guarantee do I have to protect me should you renege on your promise? So the contractor says, well, I have a $50,000 bond. Here's the insurer that's issuing the bond. Should I default on my promise here, the bond will be the party, the insurer who's issuing the surety bond. They're going to guarantee you money to get another contractor in. Now we have different types of bonds. So many times in construction, you're going to be putting out the bids, So you want to have that contractor that is awarded the job, you want to make sure that they have a bid bond. And the bid bond is saying that if that contractor is the winning bid, that they are going to perform in a certain way at a certain price. Performance bond, once again, in my example, they're going to have all their work done by the 21st of May to the specifications in the contract, all the fixtures and everything I'm ordering. I also want to make sure that they show on the bond that there's a payment bond for which they are guaranteeing that their bills for their labor, they're paying their workers, and all of the materials are going to be paid by the contractor as they do. And then your supply bond, which is saying that the contractor will be making sure that the supplier for the products and equipment will be there at the agreed upon price. We also have court bonds. So let's say we have someone that has a serious accident and they become incompetent because the injury they had from the accident is now traumatic brain injuries, and this person can no longer make any kind of decisions for themselves. So you're, let's say, a next of kin looking to become a guardian for this person to manage their financial affairs, to manage their medical decisions. Well, if we now have to go to a court, that means we're going to need to request that from the court. The court wants to make sure that that individual now who is totally disabled and incompetent, that if I renege or I violate my fiduciary, my trust of taking care of, let's say, my brother who unfortunately did die and he had traumatic brain injuries from an accident, the court is indemnified. Of course, they'll go after me, but now they could get someone else to mind the affairs of someone who's disabled. And then the judicial bond, that's issued to protect the plaintiffs, the defendants, from losses pending a civil court case. So someone is arrested, and it said that they have to post either $100,000 cash or a $250,000 bond. Usually they'll post the bond because it's a lot cheaper. So they pay the premium for the $250,000 bond. They have a court date of June 18th. They don't show up to court. Now the court gets paid by that judicial bond to go get some detectives to drag them into court to be sentenced. We also have public official bonds to make sure our public officials that we elect or appointed are acting honestly and faithfully. The contractor that you're hiring, making sure they have their license, that they get the proper permits for the work that they're doing. Fidelity bonds are what we would sell to an employer, and that protects our employer, our insured, from employees' dishonesty. And we could set it up either on a named schedule on the deck page. So we're going to specifically name individuals under this fidelity bond, or we can have it by position, all of the executives, or we could set it up as a blanket position, or we can have it just as a commercial blanket, which will cover anyone and everyone. And that's usually the guy in my office that does a lot of bonds. He usually makes sure they just have it as a commercial blanket, because the issue is they have it as a name schedule, for example, or a position schedule. Problem is, let's say they hire someone new and they forget to endorse to add them on there, means they wouldn't have coverage if they have a dishonest employee they hired. Our commercial order. Now, commercial order could be written either as a monoline form or on a commercial package policy. Commercial order could be added on there. Now, what's going to be on our commercial order policy? You're going to have your deck page. Once again, your 5 Ps. Policy number, policy premium, motor premium, policy term, start and end, 12:01 a.m. The policy limits, how much insurance, and who's the first named insured, right? So we're talking about commercial here now. A business can have literally tens of thousands of employees. And then what vehicles are we going to be covering under the commercial auto? Now, just like on personal auto, you're going to have your conditions section, rights and duties of the two parties. And we have one of separate different forms on there. So I don't have to buy medical pay on there. I don't have to buy uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. In fact, I don't have to buy any kind of physical damage coverage. It's not mandatory. That being collision and comprehensive. Now, on our business auto, we should cover private passenger vehicles, as well as commercial autos. But the business auto is not going to be used for the garage or the truck or a motor carrier, because those will involve other parties' properties as a bailee. Now, we can have on the policy coverage for liability, third party, as well as physical damage. That would be the physical damage for the insured's vehicles. Your definition of an auto, we already saw it already. An auto would be a vehicle that is registered and has a tag or a plate on it that's on a public road. Bodily injury means physical harm to someone, causing injury, sickness, or death. Property damage is tangible property that, because it's been damaged, loses value. And then pollutants are contaminants or irritants. Now, on our business auto policy form, on the deck page, they'll have different symbols. So in other words, instead of naming a specific vehicle, they'll have it by symbol. Symbol 1 is going to be your broadest coverage, and literally symbol 1 will cover any vehicle. Symbol 7 is going to be more restrictive, and symbol 7 is going to be naming or scheduling the vehicles. But also what's tested, it's not on the slide here, but let me give you the notes. Also what's tested is symbol 8 and symbol 9. Symbol 9 are the hired or rented vehicles by the business. Symbol 8, rather, are the hired or rented vehicles. Symbol 9 are the non-owned vehicles. So for example, when I was up in New York and I was teaching classes down in Philadelphia for Kaplan, as with all auto insurance, the insurance always follows the vehicle. So my personal auto insurance is covering my vehicle that I was using for Kaplan business. But let's say, it's not the case, but let's say all I was carrying was my state minimum limits for liability. And while conducting business for Kaplan, teaching, going from the hotel to the venue to teach, and then from the venue to teach back to the hotel 3 or 4 days, I get wrecked up in a really bad wreck on the road and I kill a bunch of people. Well, chances are my limits of liability are going to be depleted pretty quickly if I'm just covering for the state minimum. Kaplan has symbol 9, the non-owned auto coverage. That means when my insurance limits are used up, their limits would then kick in, because for their commercial auto, their business auto, they're going to usually have much higher limits for liability. So once again, symbol 8 are rented or hired vehicles. Symbol 9 are the non-owned vehicles. Remember it as an employee using their vehicle for the business. Once again, casualty liability is third party. We've talked about it. So because we're talking about commercial, the first named insured is going to be acting on behalf of all the insureds. Automatically on the policy, it'll read that it'll cover any and all the employees. Another note, anyone for whom an employee or the first named insured gives permission for using that vehicle, that truck, will be covered. As I've been saying for the last 8 sessions, saying it again today, what's very frequently tested are negative Norman, negative Nancy questions. Now, what do I mean by negative Norman, negative Nancy questions? They're going to test you on what's not covered. We call those exclusions. Expected or intended injuries are never going to be covered. So if my employee engages in road rage and they kill a family because they got ticked off that the other car cut them off, they're not going to cover that. Assumed under a contract agreement, we talked about lease. If it's an employee gets injured using a company vehicle, an employee that gets injured while using a company vehicle will be covered by workers' compensation. And then property that's owned by, transported by, or in the care, custody, or control of the insured, AKA Bailey coverage, would not be covered. Damage arising out of the movement of property by mechanical devices. Bodily injury, property damage arising out of the operation of self-propelled vehicles that have attached cherry pickers to them or permanently installed equipment would not be covered. Pollution unless except specified in the contract. And then on any type of auto policy, whether it be commercial auto here or personal auto, if we're using the vehicle and we're engaging in racing, stunt driving, demolition, that's not going to be covered on your policy. Well, because we have liability here. On all liability policies, we already talked about it. How many times did we discuss bailed? All right, many times, right? So bailed is the bail bond, premium for the bail bond. Medical attention given to someone at the accident scene, we call that first aid. Claim money that is not being released because maybe there's an appeal. So each day that that money is not released, interest will accrue. Insurance company will cover that. If I have to go give a deposition or be a witness in a court case, means I can't teach the class today. So I'll be paid up to $250 a day for loss of earnings. Any expenses that I incur at the request of the insurance company will be covered. And then of course, if someone's suing us, we need to have our defense costs covered. You also automatically have the out-of-state coverage extension, same as what you saw on personal lines. So if we drive the van across the state boundary line, so if I drive over to Alabama or Tennessee, those are the states that border me over here, northwestern Georgia. And let's say, oh, I'm carrying the minimum limits here, and one of those states, and I don't remember what they are, nor does it matter, but if I drive into a state where I'm carrying in my registered state for the vehicle, the minimum limits, and the state I'm now driving into or my employees driving into requires higher limits for liability, the out-of-state coverage extension will automatically bump up your limits of liability. Now on the policy, we have worldwide coverage for liability. Your coverage territory, once again, same as what you've seen on personal lines, United States, Commonwealth possessions and territories, Canada, Puerto Rico. If you want to have coverage for Mexico, because you're writing insurance in El Paso, Texas, Tucson, Arizona, San Diego, California, where the southern portions of those states border Mexico, it would be prudent to make sure that you tell your client to consider or purchase, if you know they're going there, that they purchase a Mexico endorsement. But once again, Mexico is not covered as part of the coverage territory unless we endorse. Now you do have worldwide coverage for non-owned vehicles, not vehicles that are owned by the business. Now, what do we mean by a non-owned vehicle? You're renting a car, you're renting a van. So if it's not owned, it'll be covered. If it's owned, if it's out of the coverage territory, it's not unless you endorse. But in order for that third party to sue, they got to sue in the coverage territory. The physical damage coverage, collision and comp, same as we've seen already. Collision is the vehicle striking another vehicle or object other than a living animal, or the upset or the overturning of the vehicle is our definition of collision. Same definition, nothing different. Comprehensive OTC other than collision. Other than collision is physical damage that occurs to the vehicle other than a collision. Glass breakage. You hit a live moose. That's a comp claim. You hit a bird. Falling objects. Flood and earthquake are covered. Remember, we talked about that. Intentional acts to the vehicle is not going to be covered. Freezing of the vehicle is not going to be covered. Damage to the tires, rims, or the vehicle due to road conditions not going to be covered. Any kind of stunt, demolition, or racing will not be covered. Wear and tear depreciation is not going to be covered as well. Now, sometimes on commercial auto, the policyholder, the first named insured, can request to have it set up as a named peril instead of the open perils that are covered on the comprehensive. But I'm going to tell them, don't do that. So let's say they're in Phoenix, Arizona. 2 years ago in Phoenix, Arizona, they had flooding. Never had flooding for 100 years. So if that commercial auto policy holder said, well, I want flood taken off because I want to save 3 cents on my premium, stupid, dumb, they wouldn't be covered for that claim. All right. So we always tell them, just go with what is being offered there. Now, what's not going to be covered? Any kind of reproducing equipment, tapes, records. Like I said, wear and tear. You want to know exclusions. Write them out. You know, the easiest way to retain things is by continually writing it down. Because if you write it down enough times, when you go into the state exam and they give you that grease board to write on both sides, but be careful handling it. You don't want to smudge the back side. By writing it down so many times, as those questions pop up on your exam, you'll have the visual for you ready to answer the question. Conditions, the rights and duties, we talked about that. Your physical damage, always an insurance company has the option to pay the lesser of, when there is physical damage to the vehicle, the lesser of the cost of repair or replace, or they total the vehicle, they give you the actual cash value. And then the insurance company takes what remains of the vehicle and they go to a junkyard and they salvage it for the parts. Now, on commercial auto, you can't take legal action against the insurance company unless you comply with all the conditions. Now, in some states, before the first named insured can take legal action against the insurance company, they will be required to go through the alternate dispute methods. Remember, we talked about appraisal and arbitration. Arbitration is where there is a coverage dispute between the insured and the insurer. Appraisal is where there is a dollar amount dispute to settle the claim between the insured and the insurer. If there's more than one policy that covers the claim, the primary coverage will be the owned coverage, because remember I said the insurance always follows the vehicle. And then the excess would be for the non-owned. Now, let's say someone winds up, it's academic as to why it happened. Let's say someone winds up with 2 policies with the same insurer. That one insurer, 2 policies, is only going to pay from the higher limit policy. Why? We want to maintain indemnity. Our garage coverage form, Bailey coverage here. So this here is going to be offered to auto dealers, truck dealers, motorcycle dealers, commercial trailer, recreational dealers. So that dealer is going to have their vehicles on their lot, on their premises. And they also could have their customers' vehicles, either for service or for storage. The symbol 30 are the customer's vehicles. So that's Bailey coverage. Symbol 31 is going to be the insured's vehicles that are being held for sale or vehicles that the insured owns, or vehicles that are on their lot that are on consignment. So on our garage liability form, there's always going to be liability coverage, bodily injury, property damage. You're also going to have damage to your customer's vehicle. So let's say it's on a lift and the lift malfunctions and now you crack their chassis, all right, that will be covered. Now we'll also have on our garage form all of your physical damage, your collision, your comp. Once again, we don't recommend having the comp set up on named perils, just go with the open perils. Many times in the garage form, because inventory on the lot will vary month to month, so sometimes what they'll do is they'll just insure on a blanket basis for a single limit their vehicles that are on the lot. Our truckers form, this will give us third-party claims for liability, physical damage, as well as trailer interchange. So this will cover damage to our insured's trailer, as well as if our insured is pulling a customer's trailer. We also have what is called the Motor Carrier Act of 1980. So if you ever driving on the highway, you see the weighing stations. So what the weighing stations are doing are they're making sure the truck is not overloaded, because if it's overloaded, it's more susceptible to jackknifing, as well as turning over and everything now spewing out in the road. So that being said, depending upon what that trucker has in the trailer that they're hauling, they're required to have much higher limits of liability under what is called an MCS 90 endorsement. And the dollar amount that they need to carry as far as limits under the MCS 90 endorsement will be dependent upon what that trucker is hauling. If they're hauling non-hazardous property, they need to have $750,000. If they're hauling very, very hazardous property, explosives, radioactive material, they need to have $5 million. And then if they're hauling just hazardous, but not extremely hazardous. Now, what would be the difference between very extremely hazardous, dangerous versus hazardous? Well, for the extremely hazardous, very dangerous, that would be radioactive materials, explosives. So if that truck with a jackknife and everything in it spills out, that means we're going to have not only a mess on the road, but we also have an environmental impact in that area. It's going to be a lot more expensive for cleanup. The municipality is going to say, well, where are we getting the money for cleanup? Hopefully that trucker had the MCS 90 endorsement. If, on the other hand, they were hauling hazardous materials, let's say waste product or oil, once again, that spews over, you know, you're not only talking about the inconvenience of the road being closed, but you're also talking about the cleanup. That one requires $1 million. So with the property interchange, the trailer interchange, you have the tractor trailer driver, the insured, they're using their cab with their trailer. Another interchange combination is they're using their cab with a third party's trailer. Another combination is they're using a third party's cab with their trailer. And then the fourth combination is using the third party's trailer as well as the third party's cab. So we usually recommend that they have all four combinations, because stuff happens. Their cab breaks down, their trailer breaks down, or there's a malfunction. By having all four combinations, we know that they'll have the proper coverage. The symbol 48 on the trailer interchange are the trailers that the insured borrowed or leased. The symbol 49 are the trailers owned by the named insured. Okay. Some endorsements on the commercial. We have the driver of the car endorsement. We have the individually named endorsement. Additional insured, so that would be a leased or a financed vehicle. where the leasing company or the bank wants to be listed as an additional insured. Some miscellaneous policies, professional liability, medical malpractice for doctors, people that work in the medical industry, errors and omissions for us as agents, directors and officers. So let's say a drug company was working on a vaccine for COVID-19, and they said, we're spending too much money on this, let's just sell that unit off. And meanwhile, the day after they sell it off to a competitor, the FDA approves the drug. Now the company that bought that non-performing unit, because they put a lot of resources and money into it, what do you think the stockholders are going to say? They're not going to be too happy. And they're going to say that the directors and officers did not act in good faith. So they may go after them. We have fiduciary liability. So that would be, let's say, a company that is maintaining other people's property, medical records, pensions. And then what we see many times on medical malpractice is what is called a consent to settle clause, which is where, let's say, a doctor is being sued for medical malpractice. The family is looking to get $100 million in damages, but the lawyer for the medical malpractice insurance is able to get the family to accept a settlement for 10 million. Well, 10 million is a lot different than 100 million. Well, because there's a consent to settle clause in the medical malpractice insurance act, doctor, the insurance company does not need the written consent of the doctor to okay to settle. They've already received it when the doctor bought the policy. Now, doctors don't like that clause in their policies for medical malpractice because it's an admission of guilt that they did something wrong. When I talked about the CGL the other day, commercial general liability insurance, any business that sells, serves, or distributes alcoholic beverages, their commercial general liability form does not cover for liquor liability. So in order to be covered for liquor liability, that bar, that tavern, that restaurant must purchase what is called liquor liability insurance. Sometimes it's called dram insurance. This is a big one today, EPLI, employment practices liability. I know I'm going a little bit over here, but we're almost done. The EPLI, the employment practice liability insurance, this is insurance for a business for sexual harassment, wrongful termination, passing over a employee for a promotion or a pay raise. Because this CGL, right, the big one today is all this sexual harassment that's going on. I think it was going on in the past, it's just now it's come to the public eye. But bottom line is, without EPLI coverage, that claim by that employee or ex-employee would not be covered under the regular liability. So they got to have employment practices liability. Aviation liability, physical damage coverage. So this would be offered to an airline that will cover their people working for them, but it can provide liability coverage, bodily injury to their passengers. It'll cover property damage, and of course, medical pay liability is no fault coverage. Sometimes aviation coverage is called whole, HULL, and it sort of works like the physical damage that we see on auto. So it's going to provide collision and as well as physical damage to a jet, whether it's in the air, whether it's on the ground, or whether it's in a hangar. They'll have physical damage coverage to that jet. Commercial umbrella. Just like us as individuals, people won't think twice about suing you. There's many people out there that say, hey, this is a big business. They're worth billions upon billions of dollars. Let's go sue Amazon, or let's go sue Microsoft, or let's go sue Google. So these companies realize that they have that exposure for lawsuits. Many times they're frivolous. But let's say that third party suing them is able to justify the reason for suing. Their regular liability insurance coverage is only going to go to so much. So when we now talk about commercial umbrella, we're not talking about $1 million of coverage. We could literally be talking about tens of millions of dollars of coverage. But that coverage only kicks in if it's written as excess coverage. It only kicks in when the primary coverage limits run out. And of course, if the insured's primary doesn't cover it, or they canceled their policy or elapsed, just like on the individual, on the commercial, they could be subjected to that self-insured retention limit, which is basically a deductible for what the primary insurance would have paid for that liability claim. We also have what's called DIC insurance. This is for unique properties. So let's say I'm the owner of the Empire State Building. It's worth billions of dollars. It's a landmark and it's worth billions of dollars. It's a unique risk. I can't walk into my local property casualty insurance agent's office, say, hi, I'm Paul Rosen, and I own the Empire State Building. Now I'd like to buy insurance for it. Well, what they're going to need to do is they're going to need to go to what is a specialty risk of difference in conditions, which is covering unique, unusual risks. And we're looking to cover for catastrophic exposure. These plans usually have high deductibles because we're talking about tens of millions, maybe even billions of dollars. And because we're talking about such big money, there are no 80% replacement cost co-insurance requirements on it. Your surplus lines, once again, whether we're talking about personal or commercial, surplus lines insures unique risks that the admitted or authorized insurers are either unable or unwilling to insure for. Bullet that's always tested, surplus lines insurers, because they're writing risks that the authorized insurers, the ones that have certificate of authority, are either unwilling or unable to write. Surplus lines insurer, good testing point to know, is not required to have a certificate of authority. But our commercial insured cannot just go straight to surplus lines to get a better premium. They can only go to surplus lines if they've been turned down a certain number of times. That'll vary from state to state. Or on the state insurance department website, they have a list of different risks for which you can insure those risks in the standard marketplace. Well, that means the broker who has a surplus lines broker license can go to surplus lines. Internet liability, network protection. This is a big one today. The criminals are not robbing us today face-to-face confrontation. Instead, they're robbing us electronically, technical today. If you're not sure of an email, it's a phishing email, phishing. Don't open it. Don't open the attachment. Delete it. Mark it as spam from where it came from. If you get a weird email from someone that you know, they're getting really good. They're getting really good. So you get a weird email from someone you know, a coworker, you said, this is very odd. Instead of responding, because that's what they're hoping for. They're hoping you're responding, and somehow the way that when you respond, it opens up the floodgates. So instead of opening the floodgates to them, now they have full access to the information. Same thing on your phone as well. Don't open it, delete it. Call that person up, say, you know, I got a email from you at 10:15 this morning. By any chance, did you send me an email? Because it seemed kind of strange. I said, no, I wasn't even in my office all morning. Well, you know that it was one of those phishing emails, all right? So be careful. Because some of these people, if they get hold of a server or hard drive or computer system, they could try to extort money, cyber extortion, we talked about it. And under our ILNP, our Internet Liability Network Protection, it will also provide for loss of business income as well as extra expense. Okay, I think that was my last slide, and yes, it is. So I thank all of you for spending the time with us this afternoon in the call. My assistant, my coworker here, Darlene, will be happy to answer a couple of your questions. I'll be back again tomorrow, 4 o'clock, for the final of our 10-pack series on the BOP, the business owner policy and the commercial policy. So have a good rest of the afternoon, everyone. Keep the faith, stay strong, stay positive, and I'll see you back tomorrow. Bye-bye now. Take it away, Darlene.